Hey, what's going on, guys? UFC Vegas 82, Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig just ended, and this is going to be my full card post-fight. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you my reaction and breakdown to the results. Starting off with the first fight of the night, Rafael Estevam versus Charles Johnson. This fight pretty much played out exactly how I thought it would play out. Estevam, just a better grappler, was able to take Charles Johnson down, control him, do some damage. The third round, though, Estevam started to gas out a bit. Charles Johnson started to come on strong in the third round, but it just wasn't enough. He already lost the second and first round. The second round, Johnson started to come on a little bit strong towards the end of that second round, but it wasn't enough to steal the round for him. Estevam doing damage on the ground. It wasn't a whole lot, and the gas tank was super questionable, but ultimately I scored a 29-28 for Estevam. Has to work on the cardio. Charles Johnson is a guy who has been facing so many grapplers, and obviously he's been working on his grappling and his ability to scramble, but in this fight it just wasn't enough. He was just getting out grappled, taken down. Estevam just basically dominated him on the ground in the first round. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. And then without the gas tank, it's clear Estevam would out grapple him for all three rounds, but obviously the gas tank wasn't there because he's forced to constantly scramble as Charles Johnson is trying to get up and trying to get out of position. Moving up on the card, this is one of the more controversial fights on the card. We have Nikolas Motta versus Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden won every single round. It went all the way to the third round, last 2 minutes of the third round. Ogden basically won by mixing in the grappling and landing some better shots on the feet. The second round, Motta tried to go all out, like kind of almost like he was looking for a finish, was moving forward, throwing big shots, but not landing a whole lot of them. And just Motta lost the first two rounds, was losing the third round. Motta was completely gassed in the third round, getting out grappled, and Trey Ogden locks in an arm triangle. Now you have Motta, who's defending by using his elbow, pushing against the choke, and then also using his hand, pressing against the pressure and the grip of Trey Ogden. And you have Mike Beltran step in. He's like, show me you're there, show me you're there. Both of his arms are preoccupied defending the choke. And he's yelling, show me you're there, show me you're there, show me you're there, instead of doing something else to make sure the guy was there, and he stops the fight. Motta's clearly not out. And then afterwards, they call it a no contest. And I know a lot of people are going to complain about this, and I understand why you are complaining about it. It really does rob Trey Ogden. I have a love-hate relationship with this decision because there was a day, and if you've been a fan for a long time, there used to be a day where the refs would make a mistake, the judges would make a mistake. Well, the judges, that's never been addressed really, still to this day. But there used to be a day there was clear, obvious mistakes made, and they wouldn't do anything to rectify it. So in this case, I at least appreciate them saying, you know what, I shouldn't have stopped it. Let's make it a no contest. So I do understand that. But at the same time, and I'll have to look into the exact rules, I thought if the fight went over a certain period of time, I thought if it got into the third round, I thought if there was a weird stoppage or basically a stoppage that was incorrect and they couldn't restart the fight for whatever reason, maybe there was an eye poke, a low blow, any type of stoppage in the third round, and they weren't sure and it was going to be a no contest, I thought they could go to the scorecards. They could have the judges score everything they saw. I forgot what the name of the guy was, but there was a guy where there was a head clash as he got a takedown. It was a horrific stoppage. The guy got hit with like 8 follow-up elbows. I can picture his face, but I can't think of his name right now. And it was against a guy, I think his last name was Hernandez. Maybe it was Carlos Hernandez. I don't remember. But there was a head clash. They deemed it was the head clash that put him out. It was the end of the third round. He gets TKO'd and finished. They stopped it, but then they went to the judges' scorecards because they said, look, it was the head clash that put him out. Why didn't they go to the scorecards and give Trey Ogden his win? The UFC should pay Trey Ogden his win money. So while I do appreciate them acknowledging the mistake, I hate the fact that they acknowledge the mistake by making another mistake and saying it's a no contest. No, they should go to the judges' scorecards, and if that's not specified in the rules, we need a rule change. So Trey Ogden got screwed. He clearly should have won this fight against Nikolas Motta, and it ends up being a no contest. And who knows, he might have actually got the arm triangle. There was like a minute or so left, I believe, 2 minutes left. He may have gotten it anyway and gotten the finish, but a mistake by the referee cost Trey Ogden potentially a finish win. Moving up on the card, we have Ailin Perez versus Lucie Pudilová. Ailin Perez wins via decision. Basically dominates the first 2 rounds, gets in the full mount in the first 2 rounds. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage, starts to do some damage in the second round, but gasses herself out. Third round, she starts looking for takedowns, desperation takedowns. Pudilová ending up on top, doing some damage. And then by the end of the third round, Perez completely gassed, almost gets rear naked choked. the last 30 seconds of the round. It looked deep, but I guess Pudilová didn't have enough, strength to finish the choke. Ailin Perez survives and ends up being a 29-28 decision win for Perez, which I agreed with. But then Ailin Perez is like twerking nonstop afterwards. So you had no energy to fight. You had absolutely no energy to fight, but you can twerk afterwards. I mean, talk about catering to the MMA simp fan base. That is what Ailin Perez is doing. Then she's shouting out her OnlyFans at the post-fight presser, but it was not a great fight at all. It wasn't an enjoyable fight at all. I think there was a head kick that landed on Perez. I think that's what might have busted up her eye. I'm not 100% sure, and that's what she got taken down initially in the third round. But I think she got up after that, and then it ended up being, like half-hearted takedown attempts from Perez where she ended up on bottom. But overall, just kind of a garbage fight. Moving up on the card, we have Jeka Saragih versus Lucas Alexander. Jeka Saragih wins via first round KO. Alexander had some moments. He was landing some shots. It was a very competitive fight. He landed a head kick, and Saragih catches it, kind of trips him to the ground. And as Alexander's getting up, he doesn't have his defenses up, eats a nasty right hook that just puts him down. He's done right there. Saragih follows up with some shots up against the fence. Kind of reminded me of Yo Romero, Luke Rockhold a little bit, just a little bit. And Jeka Saragih gets it done. Honestly, Jeka Saragih looked bigger in this fight than he was, and then he looked in his last fight. But he's got nasty power. He's gotten so many crazy KOs and got it done against Lucas Alexander. So solid win for Jeka Saragih. Super, spectacular win against Lucas Alexander. But what does it really mean for the division? Doesn't really mean a whole lot. And in general, this card didn't really mean a whole lot. But Jeka Saragih gets it done. Moving up on the card, we have Mick Parkin versus Caio Machado. Mick Parkin wins via decision. This was a horrific fight. Mick Parkin basically kind of won it with his grapplings. Machado had some moments throughout the fight. The first round was uneventful. The third round was uneventful. The second round was uneventful. I mean, the whole fight was basically uneventful. Both of them looked like garbage. Mick Parkin just basically had more control time. And this fight was just, it was ugly. It was so ugly. I got some work cut out for me tomorrow, if you know what I mean. This fight was hideous, ugly, horrible. I mean, I just wanted, honestly, I thought about just saying, moving up on the card, say this fight, and then say, ooh, scream, ooh. But this fight deserves to be shit on. It was a horrific fight. I'm disgusted with it. I'm horrified that I watched it. And I basically watched it twice because I wasn't paying super close attention to it because I wasn't home when I watched it initially. So I went back and rewatched it. Horrible fight. Never want to see either one of them fight again. Mick Parkin gets it done. Never going anywhere in a very low skill level heavyweight division to begin with. Moving up on the card, we have Christian Leroy Duncan versus Denis Tiuliulin. Christian Leroy Duncan early. Denis Tiuliulin starts pressuring him, landing some shots. Christian Leroy Duncan basically clinches the entire first round. Then in the second round, Tiuliulin's kind of tired. Christian Leroy Duncan's just lighting him up on the feet. You can just tell Tiuliulin's just, his cardio's not there. He took this fight on short notice. And Christian Leroy Duncan starts lighting him up on the feet. Tiuliulin starts to land some shots in the second round, but the body language is awful. Then you have Christian Leroy Duncan just start landing uppercuts, smashing him against the fence, hurts him with an uppercut, and then starts throwing. I think he threw back-to-back standing elbows, hurt Tiuliulin bad, dropped him, finished him off with ground and pound. Christian Leroy Duncan, his movement and his striking looks really good. But if you're having even the slightest bit of trouble with a short notice Denis Tiuliulin, I don't know where he goes from here. He already lost his undefeated record in his last fight against, I believe it was Petrosian. I'm just not super impressed with the first round. Tiuliulin came out like, I'm going to try to get a finish because I know I don't have cardio. And Christian Leroy Duncan addressed it. So he faced a little bit of adversity, addressed it. But, it's still, I expected him to have a much more impressive performance, even though he did get that second round finish. And those elbows were completely nasty. He landed multiple of those elbows in the second round, but it was only after Tiuliulin was completely gassed out and tired out. Moving up on the card, we have Jose Johnson versus Chad Anheliger. Jose Johnson wins via third round rear naked choke. Jose Johnson was winning the majority of this fight. It was competitive. Anheliger was having some moments, ripping to the body a bit. But basically, you would have Anheliger get Johnson down and not really do a whole lot of damage, and then Johnson would scramble out, end up on top. And that's what actually happened in the third round. It was Johnson got taken down by Anheliger. Johnson gets controlled for a little bit, but no real damage done from Anheliger. Then Johnson scrambles out, ends up getting the back of Anheliger, and finds a rear naked choke towards the end of the third round. So, solid win for Jose Johnson. Showed off some decent striking, showed off some decent grappling. This is kind of a low-level fight to begin with, so there's not really a whole lot to examine here. You know, both guys showed decent cardio, and also shout out to him for looking for a finish at the end of the fight. There was like 30 seconds left, 20 seconds left in the third round when he finds the rear naked choke. So I love when guys are looking for finishes that late in the fight, especially considering Jose Johnson should have been up on the scorecard. So good win for Jose Johnson. He gets it done, third round rear naked choke. Moving up on the card, we have Joanderson Brito versus Jonathan Pearce. Joanderson Brito gets it done via second round ninja choke. What a fight this was. What a fight this was. This was a fight that I kind of, this was like the banger of the card for the prelims. And Brito came out super explosive, looking to land big shots. There were some scrambles in the first round. Brito just landed more damage in the first round. Pearce had some moments where he ended up on top, but then Brito, I think towards the end of the first round, ended up on top and landed some good ground and pound. But I knew if it got out of that first round, Brito starts to tire down a bit. And I was wondering in the second round, okay, what's it going to look like now? And you see Pearce start to mix in the grappling and basically gets a takedown early. I believe it was a single leg early, gets top control. Not doing a whole lot from top, but he's controlling him and he's doing a little bit of damage. And it's looking like, okay, 29-28 decision win for Pearce is coming right up. I could see it a mile away. And they're talking to each other on the ground. Pearce is saying, do something. Brito's kind of talking back, or it sounded like he was trying to talk to Stipe Miocic. He was like, NASCAR. And Brito is like, it's like looking bad for Brito because you're talking from your back while you're not getting up. You look gassed out. Well, anyway, finally works his way back to his feet. And Jonathan Pearce is still looking for a takedown. Boom. Brito just locks up a ninja choke. It was crazy because they were kind of fighting hands. And then all of a sudden, boom, he just locked it up. Like Pearce didn't even have any time to acknowledge it. As soon as he locked it up, basically Pearce just fell to his back trying to get out of it. And you could just see the camera work. Give those guys an Emmy, as Dana White would say. The camera work on that finish was spectacular. You could see how deep it was. You could see how tight it was. And Jonathan Pearce is forced to tap. So solid win for Joanderson Brito. But to be honest, 30 seconds before that finish happened, I thought for sure that Jonathan Pearce was going to win that fight. But Brito gets it done via submission. So good win for Brito. Moving up on the card, we have Uros Medic versus Myktybek Orolbai, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's short notice opponent. I didn't have a chance to do a lot of research on him. So I was like, I'll probably go Medic because, I don't really want to trust a guy coming in on short notice. As soon as I saw him, I said, oh, I messed up with my pick. And I didn't even put it in the video, but this is who I picked on Tapology. And first round, Medic hurt him badly. He was landing good combinations. But right after that, Orolbai just looked for a takedown, got a takedown, dominated him in the grappling for the rest of the round. I still gave round one to Medic, though. But I was like, this isn't looking good for the rest of the fight. But I still gave him round one because Orolbai didn't really do much on the ground, didn't really land any damage at all. And Medic hurt him badly on the feet, landed some good shots. I think at one point he landed a nasty knee to the body, landed some good hands, had him rocked, had him hurt. But Orolbai was just clearly the superior grappler. Second round, same thing. You basically have Orolbai take him down, control him. Medic just basically quit in there. And then Orolbai finds a neck crank, has his back, finds the neck crank. And Medic just says, I want out. He quit. He just said, I'm not in it anymore. You could just tell he was deflated. I mean, Orolbai was attacking everything. You have a really good grappler when they take someone down and they're just attacking all the limbs. Like he's lacing up the legs. He's going for wrist control. He's looking to just drag you back to your back as you get posted up and seated up against the fence. And Orolbai was just clearly the superior grappler. Medic had nothing for him on the ground. Absolutely nothing for him on the ground. What's crazy is Orolbai is saying he's going to 55. So he might have promise at 55, to be quite honest. I mean, I know Medic isn't some elite of the elite, but the way he went out there and made him look like dude had no grappling at all, which Medic has okay grappling, and the fact that he was up a weight class. And what's crazy about this guy is, he's not even that old. He's 25 years old. I mean, he looks much older than that. He looks like he's 35. But he's 12-1. He gets the win here via neck crank on a, three-day short notice fight, 4-day short notice fight, I think something along those lines. So solid win. Orolbai gets it done over Medic. Moving up on the card, and by the way, that was the first fight on the main card. Moving up on the card, we have Amanda Ribas versus Luana Pinheiro. Oh, man, I almost had this pick. I picked Pinheiro. I picked her. I thought she would get it done. I thought she had the better strike, and I thought she'd be able to fend off the takedown. First round, just blasting Ribas with big shots, busting her up. Ribas is swollen badly. But when Pinheiro was throwing, a lot of those shots weren't landing, and she was exerting a lot of energy on those shots as well. And Ribas is moving well, but she's not really landing anything. She's punching air, and Pinheiro is just lighting her up on the feet. So Pinheiro clearly won the first round. Honestly, I thought even in the first round, there was a slight case maybe you could have made it for a 10-8. I wouldn't personally give her a 10-8, but she was beating her up pretty badly. It was a pretty clear round for Pinheiro. And you had Ribas, who's not even looking for takedowns at all. I think she clinched up once or twice in the first round. But then in the second round, you could tell Pinheiro is starting to fade a little bit. She's not landing as many shots. And Ribas is starting to find her rhythm, starting to land some shots, starting to close some distance, starting to land some leg kicks, starting to land some combinations. And the second round was like mildly close, but Ribas clearly took the second round. And you had just more volume from Ribas. But there was, Pinheiro did land some big shots and had a power advantage in that second round, but I still thought it was pretty clear. Ribas got it done in the second round. Then in the third round, Ribas TKOs her. Just basically Pinheiro gassed out. She got a takedown, got some top control with like 2 minutes to go in the third round. And I'm thinking, okay, she can do a little bit of damage here. It was kind of even on the feet a little bit at the beginning of the third round. But I still would have favored Ribas. But then Pinheiro gets the takedown, gets the top control. I'm like, she does a little bit of damage here and controls her for the rest of the round. She'll probably win this third round and take it 29-28. Ribas shows a sense of urgency, gets up, starts landing on the feet, starts pressuring her. And Pinheiro just got her hands down at her waist. She can't lift up her hands. She's completely gassed because she's been throwing big, wild-winging shots the entire fight. And she's landing like 2 out of 10. And she's throwing so many, she's completely gassed. Then she exits, I think it was a clinch exchange or something. Or she just kind of rolls out, circles out as she's, as Ribas is pressuring her. Boom, spinning back heel kick. She was basically out from that point. And you had her follow her and just finish her, just absolutely melt her with shots. So Amanda Ribas gets it done, third round TKO. Moving up on the card, we have Payton Talbot versus Anheliger. Anheliger dominated him in the first round, got a takedown, controlled him, had his back. Controlled him for like 4.5 minutes, I think, of the first round. Doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. Gassed after that. Talbot just kind of walking him down, landing good shots in the second round. Gary looks for a takedown. I think he got one takedown in the second round, but gets shaken right off, ends up on bottom, eats some shots. Clearly loses the second round. The writing's on the wall that Gary's going to get finished. Third round, eats a nasty body kick, a nasty left hand, shoots in on a desperation takedown, gets bodied to the ground, full mounted, smashed from full mount, gives up his back, and gets rear naked choked in the third round. Payton Talbot gets it done. Not an impressive win. Anheliger doesn't even belong in the UFC, and you're facing adversity against him. But in the same respect, he's young, he's inexperienced. He gets a little bit of experience against Anheliger, faces the first round where he's getting dominated, comes out confident, ends up getting the finish in the third round. So I guess there's that takeaway from the Payton Talbot performance. Moving up on the card, we have Jordan Leavitt versus Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper gets it done via first round rear naked choke. Jordan Leavitt decides to grapple basically immediately, gets a takedown. Chase Hooper scrambling, looking for arm bars, looking for triangle chokes. At one point, it looks like he might get the arm bar, but then Leavitt looks like he's going to pick him up and slam him. Hooper lets it go. Then Leavitt's in guard, starts standing up, looking for a heel hook, kind of falls back for a heel hook, ankle lock, leg lock, whatever you want to call it. And Chase Hooper kind of playing the same game as well. But Chase Hooper scrambles out, snatches up the neck of Jordan Leavitt, and chokes him out in the first round. Chase Hooper has unbelievable scrambles. I mean, the way he gets his legs involved, and he just finds ways to just scramble out of certain positions. And he beats Jordan Leavitt better than Paddy Pimblett beat him. So I rate Chase Hooper higher than Paddy Pimblett at this point. So Chase Hooper gets it done, rear naked choke, first round. Decently impressive performance. I thought he was going to lose to Jordan Leavitt. Moving up on the card to the co-main event, we have Jake Matthews versus Michael Morales. This was a relatively competitive fight. I thought Michael Morales won every round. There was a second round where I was going to score it for Matthews. The last 15 seconds, Morales came on super aggressive, had a flurry at the end. I thought it stole him the round. Third round, you had Morales kind of winning the round. You had Matthews come on aggressive at the end. I thought, honestly, when it was going to judges' scorecards, I was worried about who they might score it for. But ultimately, I think the right guy got his hand raised. Overall, underwhelming performance, uneventful fight. Michael Morales is kind of getting a good bit of hype. He's young. The physique he has is crazy. And, people are kind of hyping him up. Oh, he's this young prospect. But to put on this type of performance against Jake Matthews, the lack of urgency. There was a couple times in this fight where he had flurries, where he rushed forward and landed some good combinations. But outside of that, it was those were 10-second periods throughout the fight. And then he would just go back to being on cruise control, landing some good inside leg kicks, landing a couple jabs. So it really overall, it wasn't a great performance, but he gets it done, and it's a natural progression for his career. So I do think it does tell us something about Morales' skill set, but I would just like to see him maybe prioritize a finish a little bit more against Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews had a decent showing, landed some good shots himself, and it was a competitive fight, so he didn't look completely washed, but Michael Morales gets it done via decision. Moving up on the card to the main event, we have Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig. Brendan Allen dominated the fight. There was, a moment in the first round where Brendan Allen's dominating him on top. He was winning on the feet before he ended up getting the takedown, where Paul Craig initiated the clinch, and then Paul Craig ends up getting taken down, where Paul Craig almost found a calf slicer. But Brendan Allen works his way out of that, beats him up, lands some elbows. Second round, the strike differential on the feet, skill-wise, it was crazy. You could see Brendan Allen's not even that great of a striker, but Brendan Allen hurts him on the feet. Paul Craig's basically out on his feet. Hurts him badly, dominates him the rest of the round, landing elbows, busting him up. He's bleeding in the second round. I'm surprised he didn't finish him in the second round. And then the third round, basically more of the same. Paul Craig's completely done. Brendan Allen dominating him on the ground and finds a rear naked choke and finishes Paul Craig via rear naked choke. And the way people are hyping up Brendan Allen, I get it. He went out there and he beat Paul Craig. He whooped Paul Craig from start to finish. He did what he openly admits to doing to his 3-year-old daughter, which is whooping her. And he gets it done, but Paul Craig's a dead body. I don't understand why people are hyping Paul Craig up like it's some great win. Brendan Allen, he's calling for a number one contender fight. He did what he was supposed to do to Paul Craig, okay? He did what he was supposed to do to Paul Craig. There are 5 unranked fighters right now that I think beat Brendan Allen. He's calling for a number one contender fight. Just to name a few: Roman Khabibulov, Caio Borralho, Armin Petrosyan, Nursultan Ruzaboyev, Gregory Rodriguez. I think they all beat Brendan Allen. There's a lot of guys in the middleweight division I think beat Brendan Allen. The 2 best guys that Brendan Allen's ever faced, Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland, guess what? They both finished him. So let's pump the brakes. Dude's begging for a number one contender fight. Well, guess what? You should have accepted a fight with Roman Dolidze. He was offered a Roman Dolidze fight when Roman Dolidze was ranked way ahead of him for a main event, and he turns that down. So let's pump the brakes on Malibu's Most Wanted, all right? Let's pump the brakes. He gets it done, but he's supposed to beat Paul Craig like this. He's supposed to dominate Paul Craig like this. This isn't that great of a win. And I think Brendan Allen is one of the most overrated fighters. He better not jump up high in the rankings. I think Paul Craig was ranked like 13 or 14. Oh, he finishes Paul Craig. We're going to jump him up crazy in the rankings. It was a performance that I expected. I expected him third round TKO ground and pound. I expected him to dominate this fight. I thought outside of like a crazy Paul Craig submission where he somehow finds a submission, like the calf slicer in the first round, I thought there's no way Paul Craig wins this fight. And that's what happened. So I'm going to pump the brakes. I think we're getting a little hyperbolic. John Anik's tweeting out that Brendan Allen's a real problem. He says he wants to fight, Khamzat Chimaev or Jared Cannonier. Give him one of those fights, please. I want to see him in a big fight, but it's not a number one contender fight. Let's pump the brakes on that. It's not a number one contender fight. So Brendan Allen gets it done over Paul Craig. This was essentially one of the most pointless cards of all time. We didn't learn a lot from this card. A lot of low-level MMA. But we had some fun, so it is what it is. But yeah, this is probably most pointless card of 2023. And this card just screamed Apex card. It just screamed Apex card. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.